All right, everybody, welcome. We're live on Facebook now. We would like to welcome you to our webinar on Do You Have a Plan to Vote? And my name is Judy Mark. I am the president of Disability. Hold on, I'm just starting a watch party, which all of you should do, to share this on Facebook. So we are Disability Vote California is a coalition of organizations throughout the state of California who represent, advocate for, serve people with disabilities across all disabilities. And I'm very excited to welcome all of you to our webinar today that we are entitling, Do You Have a Plan to Vote? All of our webinars are translated, are simultaneously interpreted in Spanish. So at this time, I'd like to invite our Spanish interpreter, Lorna Silva, to explain to Spanish speakers how to access the back line. Go ahead, Lorna.
El número de teléfono para la interpretación al español es 551-241-6310. De nuevo, 551-241-6310. No se necesita código de acceso. Gracias.
Thank you, Lorna. And that information is also in the chat. So let me tell you how our webinars basically work in case you've never joined us before. We are meeting on Zoom, but we're also going live on Facebook. All of our webinars are recorded, and so if you're unable to stay for the entire webinar or want to share it with other people at a later time, you can find all of our webinars and much more information that you're going to hear about today at the Disability Vote California website, which is disabilityvoteca.org, disabilityvoteca.org. And all of our previous webinars and future webinars will be on that page. The other thing that I wanted to say is that we are welcoming all of you to talk about how your plans to vote. And to do that, you can do it one of two ways. You can write it in the chat and we'll try to follow that. If you have a question for our panelists, you can put that in the Q&A. By going down to the bottom of your screen, Q&A are two little like thought bubbles, and you can click on that and ask any questions of our panelists. And we will do our best to answer them. So let's get started because we have lots of people I'm seeing joining us I have people from all over the world joining us on our Facebook Live. So including my cousins in Israel. So hello, cousins in Israel. You cannot vote in the United States, sorry. So welcome everybody. The first presenter I'd like to introduce to you is Christian McMahon. Christian is the communications specialist at the ARC of California and really the creator of Disability Vote California from a couple of years ago. He has created a lot of the materials that are on our coalition website and is really here to go to give you a presentation on how what the options are for your votes. So please welcome. Thank you, Christian, for joining us.
Thank you so much. And actually, I've been upgraded, so I'm now the Director of Programs and Communications.
Thank you.
We have to update our website.
Note that.
So should I just jump straight into my presentation on the many ways that Californians have to vote? I will. Let me see if I can figure out how to share my screen. Okay, good. So hopefully you can all see this now. Election 2020, how Californians can vote during the pandemic. The Secretary of State's office and all of the county elections boards have been scrambling and making really smart decisions about setting us up to vote. So I'm just going to talk you all through those. Okay, first, what is happening? This year, all registered California voters will have their ballots mailed to them. Ballots will begin arriving in our mailboxes just after October 5th. That's when they're putting them in the mail, so expect them shortly after that. And this is to keep people safe from COVID-19. Now, this is just sort of a general explainer of what you can expect on your ballot. The most important part, I think, honestly, is this last sentence. If you do not know about something, you do not have to vote on it. This is just, there's a myth that you have to vote on every single thing or your ballot won't count. That is absolutely untrue. You know, you know, there are a lot of different races by county that you might not know about, and don't feel pressure to vote for something if you don't know what it is. Okay, so here's your first option, and this is the safest option for COVID-19, which is voting at home. So you get your ballot, maybe it's, you know, October 10th and it shows up. You just mark your ballot and you put it in the envelope that comes with it, and it's already addressed to your county elections office, and put it right back in your mailbox. The most important thing, if you choose to vote from home, is you will need to sign your name on the outside of the envelope. They are checking signatures to make sure that you are who you say you are. And so that can be a little tricky for people with disabilities because some of us might have dexterity challenges. So if you usually use a stamp or mark an X to sign your name, like if that's how it's signed on your California ID card, you absolutely use that stamp, mark that X. No matter who you are, just try to keep your signature as close to the one on your California ID card as you can, because it will be checked to prevent any kind of fraudulent issues in the voting. And they always check mail-in ballots that way. Voting from home continued. For your vote to be counted, you must mail it in on or before Election Day. This year, Election Day is Tuesday, November 3rd. You can mail your ballot anytime before Election Day. Now, as you know, there's been some setbacks with the post office, so my recommendation is to mail it as soon as you feel comfortable with your choices and know that you've marked your ballot exactly how you want it to be marked. So the sooner the better. Now, if you do not want to put your ballot in the mail, you can drop it off at an elections box near you or your county early vote center anytime before November 3rd. I believe that your ballots will come with information on where your nearest votes drop boxes are, but you can also contact your county election office to find out that information. And I'll have a link to finding your county election office at the end of the presentation. Option 2, voting in person. You absolutely can vote in person, it's your right. Each county will have polling places set up, and they're gonna run them at least 3 days before the election. Some will maybe do longer, and there will be early vote centers in each county, I think open for at least, I think it's a month before, but I know that it's at least a week. Now you can vote at your local polling place on any of these days, and November 3rd is the last day you can vote. Again, because of COVID-19 precautions, it's better to vote early to avoid crowds, because we just don't want anybody having to risk exposure to the pandemic. Voting in person continued. Polling places may be less crowded if you vote before November 3rd. I forgot that was its own bullet point, excuse me. You can vote at your polling place if you prefer to vote in person, if you did not get your ballot in the mail, or if you've lost or messed up your ballot. Really, you can vote in person for any reason. If you do get your ballot in the mail and choose to vote in person, bring your ballot with you, or else you may end up voting with a provisional ballot. That's not true for every county. Some of them will be able to check and verify you and give you a regular ballot, but a lot of them won't. And if you do end up with a provisional ballot, that just means that your vote will get counted later, but it will still get counted. Voting in person continued. Polling places are changing to keep voters safe from COVID-19. Check to make sure that you go to the right polling place before you leave home. Your polling place may not be the same place that it usually is. And you can check with your county elections office to find out where you should go to vote in person. Each polling place has accessible voting equipment. Some people with disabilities might need to vote in person to use accessible voting equipment. This is a completely reasonable reason to choose to vote in person. And here are links, which is to register to vote, because that is the most, you do that first, make sure you're registered. It's registertovote.ca.gov. And then this, contact your county elections office. This is the, and I'll put these in the chat so that people can actually have them, because this is kind of a mouthful. But basically it's the Secretary of State's website has a list for contact to find your county elections office. And more information on voting for the disability community can be found at www.disabilityvoteca.org. And so in conclusion, options are great. We have a lot of them this year, and obviously, especially within the disabilities community, one thing might work for me that won't work for somebody else. So it's really good to have these options, know what they are, so that we can think through what makes the most sense for us. So pick whichever option will work best for you. They're all equal as long as you're voting. That's great. And whatever your plan, vote. That's it. Thank you.
Thank you. Did you want to just mention, Christian, some of the issues? Because not everybody, I'm looking at the participants and not many of them have not been in previous webinars. Mm-hmm. So do you want to mention sort of the signature issue, or I can talk about it if you don't, to ensure that people's signatures match?
Sure. Yeah, no, and it's like I was saying, you have to sign the envelope that you return your ballot in if you're putting it in a drop box or mailing it in. And each of these has a barcode that is assigned to a specific voter. And the signature is the piece that they use to verify that you are who you say you are. So it is critically important that it is as close to what your signature has been on your ID card or any official state things that you've signed, because they do have your signature on file. So yeah, no, and that obviously it can be a challenge because, like, I know I have some dexterity issues, and you know, every few years my signature might look a little bit different than it did in the past, which so yeah, when I vote by mail, I always get out my driver's license and look at it and try to just get it as close as I possibly can to that. And if your ballot is rejected because of an issue with your signature, you will be contacted, like, so that you can fix it, like, so that there can be a conversation and you can get it fixed correctly. But, you know, if you do that, that means that your vote will be counted a little bit later than if you get it matched in the first go around.
Yeah, and you were supposed to be contacted. Not everybody gets contacted, and so we want to make sure that votes are counted from the beginning and that we don't have to worry about it. So, you know, this is a really important issue for people with disabilities, some of whom may use a mark instead of their name. I can say that for my own son, when he registered to vote, his handwriting is very simplistic, and he never got registered because they thought it was some kid filling out a voter registration form as a joke. And so he never got registered. And luckily we were on top of it and realized he never got a sample ballot. But it took like a huge amount of effort to correct the issue.
Absolutely. Yeah. And it definitely can. So that's actually another thing. If you are registered to vote, you can also check your registration status. And I'm recommending that everybody do that, just to be 1000% sure that everything is correct and up to date and ready to go this year.
Wonderful. Somebody's asking in the chat when we can vote. When does early voting begin?
Oh, I'm not sure about early voting. I will have to look that up.
I will get that information because I have it on a document that I am working on right now. I just don't want to give the wrong information.
Same. I have kind of a sense of it, but I don't want to say. I know that the state of California, every elections office will begin mailing the ballots on October 5th. So that's when regular voting begins, is whenever it shows up in your mailbox.
Right, exactly. Mailbox, yes. Ballots will be sent out on October 5th, which means voting begins within a day. Some people will hopefully get their their sample or their actual ballots within a
Right
day.
away. Yeah.
All right, wonderful. Thank you. Great. That was really great. And so what is your personal plan to vote, Christian?
It's very funny. I saw Sasha's email this morning. It's exactly the same as Sasha's. I'll be very brief about it, but I'm an immunocompromised person, so I've been fairly homebound this whole time. So my plan to vote is to vote from home, and then I have a friend who's going to pick up my ballot and put it in a drop box to avoid any kind of strain on the postal service. And early. I'm going to do it as soon as possible.
Which means you're going to need to really find out about all the issues on the ballot
Absolutely.
way in advance and know how you're going to vote.
Yeah. Yep.
So that's important to find out what's on the ballot. And we are here to help you with all of that. Another question is, are there specific options for people with disabilities for voting that provide any accommodation or drop-offs or drive-throughs or something like that?
I am very glad you asked. There's actually, this is the first year that remote accessible vote by mail has been available in every county in California. And what that is something that you need to communicate with your county elections office that that's a choice you want to use, but it's for people with, or most beneficial to people with visual or dexterity disabilities. It allows them to put their ballot into their computer and use their assistive technology to mark their ballot and then print it out and mail it in the envelope that's provided. So that'll be great because that does protect your ability to vote independently and privately. So you don't have to have somebody sitting there marking the little bubbles for you.
Right. That's great. Perfect. And so there also hasn't, can a friend help you to vote?
Yes, yeah, no, a friend, if you don't want to deal with remote accessible vote by mail and have a friend you trust to do the little bubbles for you, they can. You will have to do your own signature, obviously. And as I was saying with my vote plan, it is absolutely acceptable to have somebody take your ballot to the drop box for you or to the polling place for you. They can't obviously vote in your stead in person, but they can go with you. If you are going to vote in person, you can have somebody come with you to help. And there will be accessible voting equipment, as I said in my presentation, at all of the polling places. So if that's something that is an option that's worked for you, that's absolutely available.
Wonderful.
Or should be available. And if it's not, Disability Rights California has a helpline that is on the Disability Vote California website.
Great. And that's disabilityvoteca.org for everybody. Somebody's asking who will win.
Oh God, I wish I knew.
In the future, we would not be having our jobs in the disability world because we'd be very rich because we'd be predicting a whole lot of other things.
Absolutely.
Okay. We're going to still have more. What I'm going to do now is introduce our other speakers, but Christian, if a question comes up that you can answer, please continue to chime in.
Absolutely. I'll just hang up.
Great. So we now have a set of panelists that we've posed 2 questions of. Why are you voting this year as a member of the disability community, whether you are a person with a disability, a family member, or a professional in the field? And so why are you voting? And we also ask them, what is your vote plan? What is your first choice of a vote plan? And do you have a backup in case your first choice doesn't work out for some reason? So the first person that I'd like to answer those questions is Wesley Witherspoon. Wesley is a self-advocate who is an expert on voting, has trained probably thousands of self-advocates and family members on voting and continue. I just heard about one that you're doing for Westside Regional Center. So, so Wesley, please tell us why you vote and how you're going to be voting this year. Oops, you are still on mute, Wes, or we are not hearing your. No, I cannot hear you and you're not muted. All right, he's going to try to work on that. Okay, Wes, you try to fix that, and I'm going to move on to our next speaker, and then I'll come right back to you. Okay. All right, so our next presenter is Mark Melanson. Mark is the Executive Director of the newly rebranded California Community Living, Network. Yes, I couldn't remember. I got the community living right, but I wasn't sure if the network was still there. I just heard the new name yesterday, and I forgot to change it on my sheet of paper. So California, I love that new name, by the way. Community living is exactly what it should be instead of supported living. So I love that. So Mark, what are you voting on and how are you going to be voting? What's your method?
So Judy, thanks so much. We did just rebrand. We were formerly the California Supported Living Network, and we only had to change one letter. But if you ever do a webinar on rebranding in a pandemic, I'll be your speaker because it's been interesting. So we are now CCLN. So thank you. Thanks so much for the opportunity to speak today about voting, Judy. You know, for those that do know me, I am a little bit of a political nerd. I really do, as crazy as it sounds, enjoy tracking bills. If you've ever seen the life cycle of a bill, I've got a visual map that really shows how bills flow through our Capitol, and it is quite a journey for a bill to move its way through the process. So I've always really enjoyed tracking bills and watching how they progress or how they don't progress. I also pay really close attention to how politicians vote on those bills that are important to me, which helps me then identify candidates that I find are really aligned with what my interests are. So I also enjoy submitting letters of support in opposition to bills because you get to see your name on the support or opposition lists when you do the bill tracking. So, but why do I vote? You know, I love getting that I voted sticker and taking a selfie and posting my picture on social media with pride wearing my sticker. So that's really one reason, but not the main reason. I vote because it's important for me to make my choice heard and to exercise my right to participate in our democracy. It's a proud moment for me when I vote. I vote because it's important for me to select my government. A government that represents me is really important for me. And I vote so that my choice gets counted. There's so many issues today that impact my life and my future that I feel it's important for me that I have a say in who I'm able to choose for those offices. Those are a lot of the reasons of why I vote. You know, my plan to vote, gosh, I've always enjoyed voting in person at my neighborhood polling location. I really felt that it was my duty as an American to show up in person and really, you know, cast that vote. I was always very proud to do that. Enjoyed seeing my fellow community members from my neighborhood while I was there at my local neighborhood polls. But, you know, things are a little bit different this year with coronavirus. So my plans have changed a little bit. I'm planning to receive my ballot in the mail and filling that out immediately with my choices. I do live 2 blocks from City Hall here in San Francisco. I can actually see the dome outside my window. And I know that there'll be that will be a drop location. So my plan is to walk the 2 blocks with my envelope and drop it off at City Hall. Alternates, if City Hall is not an option, I'll go to my neighborhood polling place to see if I could drop it off there. And if that's not an option, then I'm going to get it in the mail as soon as I possibly can. So thanks again, Judy. I do have to run to another meeting, but thanks again for giving me the opportunity to talk about why and how I'm going to vote and make sure you all get the vote out. So thank you.
Thanks, Mark. And please stay in touch. You know, get your staff, all the staff of all of your member organizations out there, encouraging them to vote and everyone else that they serve. So
we have been really active on Twitter. So I'm going to put our Twitter handle on there so that you can retweet us. So we've been getting a lot of the Disability Vote California messaging and graphics out on Twitter. So I'll pop that in the chat before I go.
Thanks so much, Mark. Take care.
All right, thank you.
All right, we're going to go back to Wesley now, who's on two, I think both on his phone and his computer.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, so if you could turn off the sound. Oh, now you need to turn off the sound that's on your computer so we're not hearing an echo from you.
Okay, I'm just gonna turn it off.
Okay, sounds good.
Okay, I'm gonna leave.
There we go.
So, hi everybody. How's everybody doing today? So, I know there's fires out there. We're in a pandemic. A lot of different things are happening. So, Judy, what wanted to talk about why it's important for you to vote as a self-advocate. I'm a self-advocate, a family member. I'm a family member as well in the disability profession. So I'm all three of them. So why I feel it's important, I feel that voting is important because it's an expression of our self-advocacy rights. So as self-advocacy, we have choices like what we want, what we don't want, our preferences and our choices. Unfortunately, people died for the right to vote. So people back in the 50s and 40s, they actually died because they wanted to vote. And I was back in the registrar about a couple of years ago. In order to be a voter, back in the past, you had to read a 5th grade reading level. But now, the only three requirements to become a voter now is to be 18 on election day, to be a U.S. citizen, a California resident, all those requirements. So I voted. Remember, when you vote, make sure that you complete the application. I voted since I was 18. And the thing about voting, sometimes when you vote for something, it doesn't win. So that's a reality of our voting. So keep on voting. Don't get discouraged if the thing you vote for don't win. And I've been involved with voting process since I was in high school. So I've been following since I've been in high school. So it's good to start early. I'm expressing what I want in the political arena. So you express what you want. I've been registering people across LA County. I've registered people from 6 major political parties, different ideologies and different beliefs. So I spoke to different people of all different groups. I remember voting in my senior year of high school, and it felt very important. It felt very important. It's part of being a citizen of the United States is voting. So what's my plan to vote in November? In person, by mail, drop off, everybody, etc., and why? I plan to vote by mail. The reason why, because it's convenient to do. So I just want to put my vote in the mail and have it done. I plan to do it as soon as I receive my vote ballot. Do I have a backup plan in case your plan does not work? If the plan does not work, I'll ask for another vote by mail ballot. And I'll try again to vote by mail. So if it doesn't work, I'm gonna call the county registrar because I know the people at the county registrar. I know the main person there, so they can help me with voting. So I want to thank you for having me here, and everybody have a good day. Take care.
Ooh, can I ask you a question, Wesley? Can you tell us can you hear me, Wes?
Yes, I can.
Okay. Can you tell folks what the Registrar of Voters is responsible for?
The register require voting. They're responsible for giving people ballots. They're responsible for counting the ballots, make sure it's accurate. It's a long process. So after election day, they can still be counting ballots do it for maybe a few months. So even though the election's over, it's still doing a lot of work. So did it answer my question, Julie?
Yeah, that's great. That's very helpful. Thank you. Because not everybody is going to know those terms. So I just wanted you to define it for them. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Wesley.
Oops, there we go. Are you guys hearing me? No echo. Okay, perfect. So next I would like to introduce Sherry Johnson. She is the parent of an amazing young man who will be voting for his first presidential election this year. Is that true?
Yes.
That's so exciting. So we've asked the same 2 questions to Sherry. Why is it important for you to vote? And what is your plan to vote this year? Go ahead, Sherry.
Hi, everyone. Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Okay. So it's important for me to vote because at some point, my ancestors could not vote. Like Wesley said, in the 40s and the 50s, you know, historically African Americans' votes were suppressed. So it's very important for my family to vote, for my children to see me go out and vote, because it's not only our right, it's my duty. And as a child, I can remember my mom telling me stories of my grandmother. She remembers the National Guard escorting them to voting polls. And the jelly bean test, that's not a myth, that's real. You go out to vote and you have to guess how many jelly beans are in a jar. This is not an urban myth. This is real. There was a literacy test where you had to guess jelly beans. You had to guess how many bubbles were in a soap bar. If you Google it, and it's there. It was actual tests, and it wasn't a pass or fail for African Americans. You would definitely fail the test. So it's actually a duty. I can't get out of not voting. It's a feeling. If I don't vote, all the hard work that my grandparents did, even my mother, to make it easier for me is straight out it's useless. Like Wesley said, people die. African Americans, we die. We were jailed. We were prevented from voting. And it's not too long ago. The Voters Act was 1965. That's not a century ago. That's really close. And with all the different things that are changing with our Supreme Court, just picking away at the voters' rights, slowly but surely, I see it happening, and it's scary. So that's why I vote. It's no other. We have to vote. My family, my daughter, it's like a tradition. When she was 18 with my son, we got him ready. We go to the polls, we get that sticker, we feel proud. My plan, we're still going to go in person and vote. It's just because the mail-in ballot is a great, wonderful thing, but for us, we plan to go and make our vote, look at the different bills, make sure we research them, find out what's beneficial for our community, who's for our community. Voting counts.
Thank you, Sherry. That was really great. And can you talk to me a little bit about so how old is Joseph, your son now?
He's 17.
Oh, so he cannot vote. Why did
he'll be 18. He'll be 18 November.
Oh, right
Yes.
after the election.
Yes.
That's a bummer. Oh, man. What's his birthday?
The 4th.
Oh, oh, I cannot believe he is missing the election by one day. That is so
Oh my God.
Oh well.
November 4th.
All right. Well, you can certainly register him to vote right now. You can register people, young people, early before they turn 18. But unfortunately, he's going to miss it by a day.
I know. By one day, and we need his vote right now.
We do. Well, I just want to tell folks a little advertisement for the future is that we're going to be doing a webinar in a few weeks on that we're calling supported decision making and voting, where we're going to show parents and professionals who support people with disabilities who need help with voting, how you do it in a way to make sure that their opinions are still being made in the voting process, but that they're getting the kind of support that they need, whether it's whether they have an intellectual disability and need support understanding the things, what's on the ballot and the candidates that are on the ballot, or whether they need more physical support. So we'll be getting to that soon. And so I guess the next election cycle, you can use that for Joseph. Oh, yeah. That's a bummer.
I know.
All right, well, thank you, Sherry. Thank you so much. I would next like to introduce Sascha Bittner. Sascha is a self-advocate who is extremely active in the political world, as well as very active in the self-determination movement. And I asked Sascha the same question. So go ahead, Sascha.
My sister Annika will be interpreting for me.
My sister Annika will be interpreting for me.
I advocate for disability rights,
I advocate for disability rights,
long-term care and the rights of
long-term care, and the rights of
domestic workers,
domestic workers,
like those who provide supported living services,
like those who provide supportive living services,
and ISSS,
and IHSS,
on a local, state, and federal level.
on a local, state, and federal level.
The
The
success of
success of
this advocacy
this advocacy
depends a lot
depends a lot
on which the visitors are in power
on which officials are in power.
and the voting for the right
So voting for the right
candidate
candidate
is extremely important.
is extremely important.
As a self-advocate,
As a self-advocate,
I vote for officials of my values
I vote for officials who share my
and
values,
protect human rights,
protect human rights,
including disability rights and workers' rights,
including disability rights and workers'
and
rights,
overall try to make this world a better place for all of us.
and overall try to make this world a better place for us.
And it's also extremely important
It is also extremely
in
important
the vote on local and state
to vote on local and state
propositions.
propositions.
They can make a big impact on our lives too.
Since they can make a big impact on our lives too.
And in terms of what
In terms of
how I will be voting
how I will be voting
this November,
this November,
I do like to go to a polling place.
I do like to go to a polling
But
place,
for this November,
but for this November,
I will have someone from my family
I will have someone from my family
drop my ballot
drop off my ballot
and an election vote at an election drop box
at an election drop-off
within the first week of receiving my ballot in the mail.
within the first week of receiving my ballot in the mail.
There have been issues
There have been issues
with the mail
with the mail
being thrown,
with being slow,
and I want to be there my ballot arrives in time to be counted.
I want to be sure my ballot arrives in time to be counted.
And I can read the rest.
Yes, some of my friends who know a lot about elections tell me this is the best way to vote this year. The ballot could also be dropped off at an early voting center. I don't want to vote in person since I might be more at risk for getting very sick if I catch the coronavirus. I have already checked my voting status at the SF Department of Elections. We're all good, and signed up to track my ballot at california.ballottracks.net. If it doesn't arrive by election day, I can contact the Department of Elections in my city to make sure my vote counts. You don't have to track your ballot, but it will give me peace of mind to know my ballot arrived on time.
And I have my first plan
And if my first plan
doesn't work,
doesn't work,
I'll still have someone
I'll still have someone
drop off my ballot
drop off my ballot
before election day.
before election day,
Unless I want to make
since I want to make sure
my ballot gets there on time.
my ballot gets there on time.
Can you read your ads?
My ballot could also be dropped off on the day of the election before polls close. If for some reason I need to vote in person on election day, I'll wear both a mask and a face shield, and of course keep socially distanced.
And I just want to reiterate
I just want to reiterate,
how really critical it is to vote.
it is really critical to vote,
And no matter how you do it.
no matter how you do it.
And Annika will be 18.
I am 18.
I'm 18, so still vote for the those.
Yeah, I just turned 18 a couple months ago, so I will be voting for Biden.
Congratulations on your first election. That's
Thank
good.
Yeah, we're very excited.
Yeah, I know you're a very political family, so I'm sure this is a very big deal to all of you in the Bittner family.
Oh, and he's been a poll worker.
Yeah, I've worked at the polls a couple times in high school.
That's great. That's wonderful. So Sascha, thank you so much for those comments. I love the fact that you have, first of all, checked to make sure your vote is registered, and then talk to us about how you can track your ballot to make sure that it's been received. In the chat, for those of you who are watching on Zoom, as opposed to, we can put it also in the link on Facebook. We have posted the ballot tracker website so that all of you in the state of California can find out. It's part of this Secretary of State's website, and it's Where's My Ballot. So if you pop it in the mail, you should be tracking to make sure they received it. If you put it in one of the drop boxes. I can tell you that in Los Angeles County, and for those of you in other parts of the state, you can chime in LA County, they're going to have over 200 drop boxes in locations throughout the county. They're supposedly getting out that list very soon. They're finalizing it. These drop boxes will look like a mailbox, except they will be very labeled saying that there's something different. They're secure. And I think that because of the attacks on the Postal Service, I think a lot of folks are really going to be looking for those drop boxes. Not every county is doing drop boxes.
Yeah.
So that, which is, I think, obviously a very big problem. And you would have to go inside into your election officials' offices, which is kind of a bummer, or vote in person, or you can vote by mail. And if you vote very early by mail, I think your chances are very, very high of your ballot being received, and I think you'll be fine.
Also, I know this year it's usually postmarked on the day of the election plus 3 days. But this year, because of the pandemic, it's postmarked on the day of election, and anything that comes in 17 days after that is postmarked appropriately will be counted. It just will be, late to the party, obviously.
Yeah, great. I didn't know that. That's really good to know.
Yeah, they made allowances for that. And both the ballot tracker is linked on the Disability Vote California website as well.
Great, great. Okay, our final presenter is Abner Antunez. Abner is the dad of two wonderful young guys with autism and a gorgeous daughter. And I've asked him the same question. So go ahead, Abner.
Thank you, Judith. I hope everybody can hear me well.
Yep.
Well, one of the questions, I have to agree with everybody else in the panel list that all the reasons that they gave are extremely important. Also, it's extremely important for the future of our generations and their kids and their grandkids on this disability world. It's also important for the future of our older generations, like our parents or grandparents, and some of us, or older brothers and sisters, which at one point either they are in the disability world or will fall into the disability world. To make our voice and their voice count in this decision making. Also, through some of the experiences with Judy and some of the groups going to Sacramento, I came to understand that advocating is very important, but also our voices in the voting ballot count the most when it comes down to taking control of our futures and the future of our next generations. Voting is what drives the politicians' agenda. You got to understand that very well. They know who votes for them, what groups vote for them, and what's the most convenient thing for them when it comes down to keeping their jobs. And of course, they always want to keep their jobs. It drives their agenda and policy makings and law making. That's all I have for what's important, or how is that important for me. The next question will be what is my plan to vote, or what is your plan to vote? I'm planning to vote by mail. I gathered some information that was shared with here already, but also I did some research on my own, and one of the important things that were mentioned already is that it's very important that we're registered to vote. It's extremely important, and there were already some links already shared. where you can check if you're registered to vote. If not, there is this link. I think it's called voterstatus.sos.california.gov, where just fill out your information, your name. It's gonna ask you basic information, and it's gonna be just one click away from knowing that if you are registered, or if you're not registered, it also gives you the steps to register to vote. And that's my plan to vote. If my plan doesn't work, my backup plan is, of course, locate the nearest Dropbox ballot, so I could go and drop it off. Or in the last resource, cast my vote in person. Of course, following all the safety precautions, to make sure that we stay well. Also wanted to share a little bit about my experiences as an essential worker. It is disappointing to at some point to find out that most of the companies are doing the very minimum to protect their workers' health and their families' health as well. They are complying with the laws, but it's impressive how they follow it just to the line. They're not even trying to do the extra step just to make sure that their employees feel better. And I witnessed that my jobs and my friends' jobs. And my job, we have union, and even with union, still very difficult, because you got to understand that policy and law drives the employers own policies when it comes down to safety and regulations and all type of stuff. And that's what I mentioned before. Our voting is extremely important, because that tells the politicians what we need, and what groups you need assistance or help, or who are the people that needs more protections when it comes down to this type of things that we're going through. Another thing is I just wanted to mention a little bit, well, actually not, because they were already covered about register to vote, and of course there are only ways for people with disabilities to vote without that is not in person, and we were already helped. And one more thing that it came to my mind when you mentioned the drop boxes, voting drop boxes. I'm not sure what the material is for these drop boxes, but hopefully they're not flammable, or they're cardboard, because they could give crazy people, or people with the baddest intentions, the worst intentions, bad ideas when it comes down to vote. And of course, you know what I mean.
Thank you so much, Abner. I have a question for you. So, we've been at Disability Vote California, been doing a lot of outreach with the Integrated Community Collaborative, who's the ICC is one of our member organizations, to particularly reach out to the Spanish-speaking families in the state who have children with disabilities. And many of them are not, either maybe are not regular voters if they are US citizens, or are not US citizens, and have adult children who are eligible to vote, who are US citizens. What are some strategies from your perspective as a parent who does vote and takes this very seriously? What are some strategies that we can do to reach out to other parents who are Spanish speakers who maybe aren't voting? And this is not just Spanish speakers, it's any parents who are not US citizens. What strategies can we have to ensure that they vote?
Yes, good question. Actually, to know this, to figure out the strategies for making or for having the Hispanic community more informed to vote, you have to understand their background history. And a lot of the Hispanic communities, not only, because I'm Hispanic, but third world communities, which is one of the countries that I came from, got to understand that voting, it's basically, we are at some point, we have a chip in the back of our heads that it doesn't matter who you vote for, the decision is already made. Understanding that, then you start going from there. Okay, everybody has that chip on. Even though they won't recognize it, I wouldn't recognize it. I recognize it now because I'm more informed and I've got involved, with you and all of these groups. And, like I mentioned before, we had these, I had the opportunity to have these great experiences going to Sacramento and seeing exactly how it works. But that's the key for having the Hispanic community, to at least the first step. Understanding that that we have this chip in the back of our head that voting doesn't really matter. The decision is already made. From then you start like digging more. Okay, gotta inform the people more. You gotta let them know that we have to help our community to understand that it's okay to recognize that, because not only we could probably know that, we have everybody has their pride. And it's important that we overcome that pride and recognizing, you know what? Yeah, I don't think it's that important, but it is important because the future of our future generations, like I mentioned, and older generations, it's involved.
Thank you. That was really helpful. And it's not just the Hispanic community that thinks the elections are rigged. I've heard those same issues coming in with the African American community. Have you heard that too, Sherry?
Absolutely, Judy. And it becomes a narrative that our vote does not count, like Abner said. So why vote anyway? It's not going to count. The whole thing is rigged. It's all these multiple things that's going on around us that make us feel like no matter what you do, you get out there and vote, we control this. Yeah. We, and when I say we, I mean people, different, I don't know how to say this right, but basically like our voice doesn't matter, that we're outnumbered. We're not really in the place in the Senate to really make real change anyway. So yeah, that's very prevalent in the African American community. And also with people that may have a criminal history, Judy, they automatically think that they've lost all rights to vote forever, which is not true. In all circumstances. It's not true if you have a misdemeanor or something, you can never ever participate in an election and vote.
Yeah. Wesley, did you want to weigh in on this too?
I want to say that our voice counts, because in the state of Virginia, there was one office that was determined by one vote. So everybody's vote is very important. Here in California, we got 40 million people in California. And I think registered voters, we maybe have like 25,000 million registered voters. I'm sorry, million registered voters. So your voice does count. And people with disabilities, we're part of society too. So that's the reason why people with disabilities should vote, because we're part of society as well. We're participants in society. We have our values and beliefs. So go out and vote what you want. That's part of self-advocacy.
And also some people with disabilities.
Also some people with disabilities.
Those the connection between.
Don't see the connection between policy and voting.
No.
Wonderful. Yeah, I agree. I think that there is a lot of right now, I joke that it feels like we're in the apocalypse, but it really, particularly if you're watching this from outside of California, the United States, California really feels right now like we're in the apocalypse. For those people in Northern California, they've had this orange sort of darkness over their skies, in Sacramento as well, I believe. in Southern California right now, I'm looking at it, is so cloudy and gloomy. And we go outside. I live near the beach and I go outside and it still smells like smoke. I'm 80 miles away from the nearest fire. So it is, and I just read an article this morning that levels of depression are at all-time high right now in the United States. We are living in a very, very difficult time. And then we have the coronavirus, we have global warming and climate change, we have protests in the streets against racial injustice, and we have the most important election of our lifetime. And I want to make sure that people are making the connection between all of those concerns they're thinking about and the most important election of our lifetime. And that who we elect at every level, and I'm just not talking about president, which is obviously the thing that people are focused on, but even electing your local school board members is really important. Electing your city council members is really important. And we should have a voice at every level. I have said, we've been doing many, many coronavirus resources webinars. And I have said from the very beginning, from mid-March when we started, that I believe the horrible impact we've had from coronavirus is a failure of leadership at every level. It's not just a failure of leadership at the national level, but it's also a failure of leadership at the local and state levels too. They have not gotten they have not gotten testing in the way they should. They have reopened too fast, had lots of mixed information. These are our policymakers. These are people that we elect who are making these decisions. This is not sure, we can have we can make a difference. And so the question I have for all of you is, right now, during this apocalyptic time that we're living in, where it just seems that, I can just say in our household, we're just sad every single day. There's just a huge sadness in our household, where my daughter, who's in college, has taken a semester off because her college is distant learning. My son's favorite thing in the world, he has autism, is Disneyland, and that's been closed since like forever. And we all are working from home, which is really, really hard. Like, how do we talk to our community? And then you add on top of that we have people with disabilities who are not accessing special education, who are not in a meaningful way, who are not getting the supports that they need in their home because of COVID. How do we get to people and tell them, this is really important. We know how hard your life is. We know how tough things are. We know you're depressed, but we have to vote. Like, anybody who has any strategies of how we penetrate that. Do you want to start, Christian?
Sure. Yeah, no, I think that's really, really important. And I think central to that is, since everything is kind of put mildly different than what we've done in the past, I think the first thing that people need is accurate information. This is very just sort of basic, but I think people, when they're stressed out, like to have something positive to do. And I think voting is that. Like, it's a small thing that you can think about, that you're in control of, that absolutely is essential to making things other than what they are, to sort of trying to dig in and improve the situation. That's my 2 cents. We just keep talking about it, and we keep telling people, you guys, we have power. It seems like we're facing overwhelming odds right now, but that doesn't mean that there aren't things we can do, and voting is certainly one of them. And also, when you give people accurate information, then they have the power to share that with their families, friends, communities, anybody. So I think that's sort of my take on it.
Yeah, for me, I have been doing both nonpartisan and partisan,
I've been doing both nonpartisan and partisan.
education and both voting.
education and
about voting
about voting,
and to meet ourselves in terms of not feeling so powerless.
in terms of not feeling so powerless.
And that is helpful for me.
That is helpful for me.
And then I always connected to my other activism,
I'm always connecting it
to my other activism
to my other activism
because it's deeply connected.
because it's deeply connected.
I mean, even on a local level,
To be on a local level,
even on a local level,
even on a local level,
and a state level,
and a state level,
like we elect,
like to re-elect
who we elect,
who we elect
is deeply important.
is deeply important.
And then also, of course, president, but also the policy.
And also, of course, president.
Boom. There's a whole different story. There's a whole different story.
That's a different story.
Thank you. Others want to comment about how we get through all the depression and apathy and everything going through society right now?
Can you hear me, Judith?
Yes.
Yes. I will probably, I've been spending a lot of time with my kids, of course, like obviously everybody else. But one of the things that I think it will probably make a huge difference is start informing and educating our closest family members, relatives, closest friends, in understanding the direct connection of what is making this situation worse and what can be done different and better, of course, with our vote. You have to be clear in making sure there is a direct, they understand the direct connection on that, because yes, the situation is bad, the pandemic is bad, but there's many things that are on the way that have been done wrong or improper that has worsened the situation, which that could be in a way, to a percentage more controllable.
Good point. Sherry?
Judy, it's really tough. I just try to remind, especially when Alyssa, my daughter, and I hear her having conversations with her young friends. I really want my daughter to remember how far we've come. Now, it's real. Like I said, the Voters Act is not, your grandmother lived through this. My mother lived through this. So voting is a must through any trials and tribulation and this horrific time that we're having. It could be worse. It could be worse. And slowly but surely you see them attempting to make things harder for people to vote. That's why we have to persevere and keep it going.
Thank you. Wesley?
I want to say this pandemic is affecting the entire world. It's not just affecting the United States and California. It's affecting all 7 continents of the world. So it's going on in Africa, Asia, North America, South America, Europe, Asia, and Australia. So it's affecting the entire world. And the thing about voting is it's our choice. It's our choice to vote. When I was registering people to vote, a lot of people didn't want to vote because they're scared of getting jury duty. But you can get out of jury duty, so you can vote. So go out and vote if you want to. It's your choice.
Thank you. Yeah. If the reason why people are not registering to vote is because they're scared of jury duty, then we need to do a whole education campaign around that, because that is not good. I wanted to just say real quickly that I just want to give some dates out there that people were asking. So on the 24th of September, so in 2 weeks from today, the state will be mailing out the voter information guides, those big, thick guides that people get, which talk about who the candidates are on your ballot, as well as all the different propositions. So you're going to be getting that in short 2 weeks. And then on the 5th, and somebody had said, told us earlier, on October 5th, the counties will be mailing out the ballots. Now your ballots, depending on the Postal Service, you might get it as early as the 6th. And that is when you are allowed to start voting. Literally the day you receive your ballot, if there is a polling place or a drop box for you to drop it off at, you can start voting right away. There are a lot of propositions, right, Wesley? There are a lot of propositions on the ballot this year, some of which are very confusing. We here at Disability Vote California plan on doing some webinars about the ballot measures in an unbiased way. And none of I've looked over the ballot measures, and I believe that none of them have an absolute direct effect on the disability community. They are not about disability per se. However, a number of them we should be concerned about. And certainly we should be, if we want, should be voting on all of them. The most important thing that I want to say is that one of the barriers to voting for people is that the ballot can be overwhelming. When you receive that voter's guide, it's very thick, and you read the information and it's confusing. And that should not be a barrier to voting. If there may be 10 judges on the ballot and you have no idea who to vote for, you don't have to vote on judges. You don't have to vote on a proposition that you don't understand. That should not be your barrier to voting. In fact, if all you want to do is vote in the presidential race and that's it and be done, your ballot still counts, even if you vote on just one race. And so, it's anything that you have concerns about, that there are barriers for you, it's like, this is what's keeping me from voting, is, we want to hear about it. I've got to believe that the people who listen to our webinars are not the people who are not voting. We're probably preaching to the choir here, because they are the people who care about voting. It is those other people who are not engaged with us who we really need to get to. And so I'm asking our audience right now, whether you're on Facebook or whether you're watching this on a recording or live, that you reach out to 5 people 5 people, either people with disabilities or without disabilities, in your family or friends. Reach out to at least 5 people make sure that they have registered to vote, that their registration is active, and that their votes count. And that means that you can't just reach out to them once, you have to reach out to them multiple times until you get some sort of confirmation. Yes, I voted, leave me alone, I've done it. And these are not like 5 people that vote all the time. I mean, these are not people like, oh, one of my 5 people is going to be my next door neighbor who is like active in the Republican Party and always votes. No, that's not your person that you should be putting on the list. You should be putting people on the list who you don't think normally vote. People like Sherry's daughter and her daughter's friends who are young, in their 20s, who are the least likely to vote in this country. People with disabilities who have really low levels of turnout. So I ask all of you to find 5 people who you think normally don't vote, and tell them, and reach out to them and tell them why it is important to you as an individual with a disability, family member, or professional, what is on the ballot that is important to you, and get them and encourage them to vote. Wes, did you want to add to that?
I go to some programs and the staff don't know about voting. So you have to educate the whole circle. Like I said earlier, we educate the whole circle of a person with disability, educate the family, the staff, anyone a person with disability is in contact with, because they understand the voting process. When I do trainings and I explain the voting process, they don't understand. So we have to educate everybody.
Absolutely, I agree. Abner?
Yes. Also, with what you said, it's very important that, yes, we understand that we gotta educate people, at least 5 people that are close to us, could be, like you mentioned, relative, family members. But what is more important is what's gonna be behind that. Because once we know that these 5 people are gonna be able or willing to vote, or are gonna have a good idea of what's the importance of it, you have to understand that only then they will have the same idea as we do, and they will try to reach out to other people. And that's how everything becomes connected. You know, we make a difference by going 5 people, 6 people, whatever it takes. But those 5, 6 people are also gonna make a difference informing more people, because by then we already, it got them involved in all type of with all this information.
Mhm. You know, this is not something that I can specifically recommend right now because of COVID, but a couple of years ago during the 2018 election, there was a very, very competitive congressional race, which is actually still competitive because there's another election for the same congressional race in northern Los Angeles County. And I have cousins who live in that district who just don't vote. It's 3 young adults and their mom who just don't vote regularly during the off elections, the midterm elections. And they also, none of their friends vote. And so my husband and I rented a giant room at a very fancy restaurant in the district, and invited my cousins to invite all of their friends over and have free dinner on us to learn about this important election and get a commitment from them to vote. And these are the kinds of things we're talking about. Like now you can't really do a dinner, but you can do a Zoom meeting and invite people to a Zoom meeting to say, we want you to vote. We know you don't traditionally vote. This is why it's important this year. I can go through the ballot with you. I can help you think things through. I think there are a lot of creative ways that even during the pandemic that we can come up with to encourage people to vote.
A few days ago, Kristen and I were talking. And you mentioned like a cocktail party.
She mentioned a cocktail party.
And like people would get together on Zoom.
People would get together on
And
Zoom.
it doesn't have to be cocktails, but whatever.
It doesn't have to be cocktails, but whatever.
But just to make it a little fun.
To make it a little fun.
But then to give people like voting and like you can.
To get people voting.
And you can see them not how they vote, but they vote.
See not how they vote, but that they vote.
You know, that you can do it together and make it communal.
Do it together and make it communal.
Because I usually vote in person.
Usually they vote in person.
I usually vote in person.
I usually vote in person.
And one of the big reasons is it's like a big community.
It's a big communal thing.
And like my family and
My family and
I. Ever since I was a little girl.
Ever since I was a little girl.
I would go to the polling place.
I would go to the polling place.
And like as soon as I was 18, I was so excited to go there and vote.
I was so excited to go and vote when I was 18.
And we can have quite, and I won't be able to do quite that.
Won't be able to do quite that.
But this can be a way to kind of make it a little fun for people and to give people.
This can be a way to make it fun for people.
And to give everyone to vote.
And get everyone to vote.
And also, it will be easier in some ways because everyone will get your ballot.
It'll be easier in some ways because everyone will get the ballot.
And we can just keep telling people.
We can just keep telling people.
In California.
In California.
Remember to mail their ballot.
Remember
to mail it in.
To mail it in.
Or to drop it off.
Or to drop it off.
Or whatever, but I think actually we could do a lot of activism stuff about that.
I think we can do a lot of activism stuff about that.
That's great. Thank you. Anybody else want to add anything on that?
Well, the cocktail party that Sascha mentioned it's just become a tradition with my friends where before any election, because I have a very diverse group of friends, so we sort of seek information in slightly different corners of the world. So every major election we get together and just share information and like sort of debate all the things on the ballot. Or, you know, we don't necessarily debate because sometimes it's like, well, I don't know anything about this and my friend does, and I trust them. And but some of them we do sort of talk it over and hash it out, and, you know, just have a lovely evening, which can easily be done on Zoom. So
wonderful. Anyone else want to add? Okay, so I'm going to wrap up a little bit here, but I wanted to just do a little promotion of Disability Vote California at the end for those of you who are watching, to say that we are a coalition of organizations, and if you are interested in joining Disability Vote California, you can do so. I think probably, Ed, if you could put your, let me just say it out loud. If you're interested in joining Disability Vote California, you could email our program assistant, Ed Herzl. Ed, so it's EDHIRTZEL at dvunited.org, or D for dog, V for Victor, united.org. And let us know, and we'll bring you in, whether you're an individual or an organization. We are looking for lots of help and outreach. Our plans are multifold. Besides all these amazing materials that are being produced every single day by Christian and his team and his committee, we are also planning to do significant outreach to the disability community through phone, emails, texting, whatever works for a particular individual. We're planning to do some trainings for people in the disability field who have people that they serve, people that they that they advocate for, and assist people, hands-on assistance in voting. We are also planning to do candidate forums. We are confirming right now representatives from both regional elections, like for a county board of supervisors, competitive races, some congressional competitive races, as well as we've already reached out to both the Trump and Biden campaigns to send representatives to speak on our webinars. We're not going to have Trump and Biden themselves on our webinars. That would be a little shocking to me if that happened, but we have asked for representatives to appear in our webinars to talk about the disability issues that we care about. In addition, we are going to be doing as much hand-holding of people as possible. As Wesley said earlier, or I think it was Christian who said it, that there is a hotline that you can call at Disability Rights California every day, even not just election day, but even before election day, where we can give you advice on voting issues. If you're facing any discrimination in voting, they can assist you as well. So there's a lot of activities going on. Please get involved. Our next week's webinar is going to be very interesting. It's going to be about how our political and civil discourse, how the way that we speak to each other about politics, about candidates, about policy has become so inflamed and so divisive, and how we can have a bit more civility in our civil discussions. So we're having an amazing group of speakers for that, and we hope you'll join us. Any final words from any of our panelists besides just get out there and vote?
You took the words right out of my mouth. Please vote, register, check your registration. It'll be great.
Wonderful, thank you. Anyone else want to say any final words? All right, thank you everyone for attending today. We will have this recording posted on the DVC website as soon as possible. Take care, everybody. Please stay safe out there. Try to have a smile at least one time per day. It's hard for me too. Bye.
Bye.